This is your life, this, the heart of London's bustling theatreland, where I hope to capture for the very first of our new series a name that has just gone up in the bright West End lights. An accolade he's won because his talent has shone through a whole succession of television comedies. Now, in a Broadway hit musical, he's starring here at the Prince of Wales Theatre, and right now he and the rest of the cast are being filmed for American television. Now, I've got to get in there. It's a new step forward for a fresh young talent, and I've got to get in there without being spotted, or else we don't have a start ourselves. Here we go. Keep your fingers crossed. Here we go.
Hey there, good time.
Well, while you're getting your breath back, may I try to take it away again? By saying comedy star Richard Beckinsale, tonight, this is your life. Thank you, thank you. I will call ourselves to you and the cast of I Love Your Wife and all back to the studios with a few more surprises for you.
I swore blind I'd never fall for this.
And my thanks to Liz Robertson, Deb Follender, Ben Cross, so that tonight I can say this is your life, Richard Beckinsale, and the musical I Love My Wife adds another plus to a whole string of successes that have taken you right to the top in recent years. The stage, plays, films, television series like The Lovers, Porridge, and this hit comedy show which has won you millions of new fans.
Really call him handsome, though, Rigsby. Yes, but his veins are standing out at the moment, aren't they? Looks like a little old man. Shut up, he'll hear you. Anyway, you can't judge at that age. They often grow out of it. I mean, now, you may not believe this, but I wasn't very good looking as a baby. No. In fact, some people might even have said I was an ugly duckling. Yeah. But the ugly duckling grew up, didn't he? Didn't the ugly duckling grow up? And what did he turn into?
An ugly duck.
Rising damp, of course, with the demon landlord Rigsby, the terror of yourself and your roommate.
Don't worry, Richard. I think I've given him the slip tonight.
Yes, your fellow bed-sit-dweller, Don Warrington. Don, besides giving Richard a hard time in the show, that Rigsby character, Leonard Rossiter, gives him quite a bit of stick in real life, doesn't he?
Yes. But he's the best roommate I could have, actually. Well, except Leonard's always picking on him.
Picking on him for what?
Well, you know, for his clothes, his hair, that kind of thing.
But off-screen, they're really good pals, aren't they?
Good pals? Listen, mate, I don't mind being seen on TV with him, but not in public. All right.
It was too good to last on. Yes, he's here too, Richard, star of Rising Damp and much besides, Leonard Rossiter. Leonard, here's your chance to tell us what you really think of Richard.
Yes, he came dressed, does he?
She isn't you.
He's the only person who gets the right clothes off to go the wrong clothes in the theatre.
What about working with him?
There'll be plenty of other people who can be quite funny about Richard, but I just want to say two things about him. One is that he has a unique talent, and I use the word very advisedly. He has a unique... I use the word very, very specially. He has a unique comedy talent, and he is the most generous person, not in financial terms only... Do let me finish. Not in financial terms only, but he is one of the most generous people in spirit I have ever met, and I am delighted to have worked with him.
Well said. Thank you, Leonard Rossiter and Don Warrington. Well, now, on screen, Richard, your life's divided between that damp bed-sitter we've just seen and your prison cell in Porridge, but in real life, though, it's a very different story, as we can prove right away by meeting your better half, your wife, actress Judy Lowe.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't believe you could keep a secret.
No.
Judy, in addition to the roles Richard's famous for, at home
nice.
he stars as dad as well.
Yes, he's a smashing father to our 4-year-old daughter, Katie. In fact, as time goes on, they're less like father and daughter and more like partners in crime, two big kids together.
Well, if you take a look over there, you'll see her, Kate herself, as without your knowledge, our cameras caught her earlier today.
Hello, Daddy. How are you? I kept the secret all day. Please don't tell me. I'll give you a big kiss when I see you. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Well, though you're living down south now, Richard, there's another family just as proud of you back home in Nottingham. Your mum and dad, of course, Arthur and Margaret. And with them, your elder sister, Judy. Now, Richard, we have a picture of you here with Judy when you were both youngsters. Do you see it over there?
That's me on the right.
Well, who's the other young lady?
That's my sister Wendy.
Where's she nowadays?
She's in Holland. Well,
Yes.
she isn't, is she?
She isn't, no! Because we've flown her from there to complete the family. Come in, Sister Wendy. Well, Wendy, as the eldest of the Beckinsale youngsters, you had to do your share of looking after Richard when he was little.
Well, yes, I did. But because he was the smallest, he always used to get bossed about by Judy and I, being two girls, you know. When we got fed up with our dolls, we used to use him, dress him up instead.
There you are. Take a look, Richard.
I think I got a prize for that.
You should have done if you didn't. And Judy, what do you remember about the baby of the family?
Well, I remember when we went to Goose Fair, and he was always very ill on buses, and he'd been ill on the way. And we got to Goose Fair, and he ate candy floss, toffee apples, everything going. And then he decided to go on this chairplane ride with us, and he was promptly sick all down my Wellington boot. And we dumped him at the St John's ambulance and collected him an hour later. When we'd had our fun at the Goose Fair, we collected Richard.
They thought I'd been drinking sherry.
But Margaret, even then, he was showing signs that he might grow up to become an actor.
Yes, he was. Richard, do you remember when we bought you your first makeup kit?
Yes.
And you were upstairs in your room, and I was downstairs hoovering the lounge, and you came down, and you got a false beard, false eyebrows, little tiny specs, and a flat cap, and I turned round. Oh, dear. It was you, all right.
Thought it was a ghost, didn't you?
Oh, I had a fright of my life, I'll tell you.
So it's no surprise, Richard, that when you start your education at College House Junior School in Chilwell, Nottingham, you're roped in for a children's play at the school. And that, in fact, was your very first stage appearance, aged just 8 years old. Do you remember the role you played?
Dopey.
In Snow White, yes. Dopey it was, and it's an acting debut for another youngster at that school.
That was me. I played Sleepy.
That's
Your
Alan
co-star in that
Harrison.
production more than 20 years ago and still your best pal, as you said, Alan Harrison. Alan, with
gonna
great
speak
respect
as well, are you?
to your
Probably not.
to your acting ability in those days, there was no doubt who ran away with the acting honours in that production.
Well, him, of course, every time, isn't it? Yeah, but, you know, the teacher at the time, she said that she definitely the best dopey she'd ever come across.
Well, we have to assume that was a compliment, Alan.
Yeah.
Because when you two move on to your senior school, the Alderman White School, that same teacher moves there too, doesn't she?
That's right.
And she was to give you real encouragement and help with your acting.
Absolutely.
15 years ago, she left Nottingham, and you haven't seen her since. But we found her in the little village of Beatuck in Dumfriesshire, Scotland. Mrs. Betty Killingback, now Mrs. Alexander. Betty, tell us what happened when you cast him as Dopey and Snow White.
Well, he was marvellous. He ambled about the place and he bumped into everything that was around, knocked into the props. And the trouble was, we didn't really know whether it was pure acting genius, you know, real comedy sense, or whether it was just that he was so short-sighted. But anyway, when I met up with him again at the Alderman White School, I decided to take a gamble. And I cast him in the leading role of Lady Precious Stream
That's
for
right.
the school production.
Shaping Quay, he was called.
That's right, yes. And there was no mistake about it this time. He absolutely stole the show.
Thank you, Betty Alexander and Alan Harrison. Well, when the time comes to leave school, your ambition's a stage career, but the job that comes up is quite away from the glamour of the theatre. Apprentice upholsterer with the local bus company. But one day soon afterwards, you come home with a piece of news for your dad. Arthur, what was that piece of news?
That he got the sack. Well, it seemed that he decided to take a little rest on a seat on the top deck of the bus he was working on, and he fell asleep. He was missed, and when they did eventually find him and woke him up, he was still on the bus at a depot 5 miles away.
You're obliged to look around again, and this time you end up as a clerk with the gas board. Now, your comedy talent's not much appreciated there either, and it's in 1963 that you report for your first day's work at yet another new job, this time at Stanton and Staveley Steelworks in Nottingham. What was your job this time?
I was a... I think I was called an inspector of spun iron pipes.
I beg your pardon?
I was an inspector of spun iron pipes. Quite a responsible job, I think.
Well, some 14 years later, we've been back to visit that steelworks, and if you watch that screen, you'll see your old boss himself, Arthur Humphrey.
Hello, Richard. Do you recall your days here at Stanton Ironworks in the spun pipe inspection department? Perhaps not the best place in the world for you to work, in view of your rather short sight, to say the least. However, being short-sighted did have its advantages. It provided the glasses, which were a wonderful prop for your impressions of Eric Morecambe. But you didn't just make us laugh here, Richard. We made a good number of friends, and amongst them was Janet Parkin, who's here with us today. I'd like to have a word with you.
Hello. You had a day off once, and you came into work the following morning with your hand and arm covered in sticking plaster and bandages. Well, you got away with having the day off work, but it's always been a mystery about that accident, because when you came to work the following day, minus the bandages, there wasn't a bruise or a scratch to be seen. But that's just how it was working with you. Literally never a dull moment.
Well, they're here tonight, Arthur Humphreys and Janet Parkin. Thank you. Well, she knew about that, but you hadn't explained the miracle recovery. How did that happen, do you remember?
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. The accident didn't happen because you'd taken a day off, we discovered, for an audition for a drama course at the Clarendon College in Nottingham. That's the true story. And after 2 years of studying drama there, you win a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. But the West End stage is still a long way off for you because your first job's up north with the rep at Crewe. Your salary is there is £10 a week. And to save money on fares, you go into partnership with an actor pal in the same company.
Until Richard made off with my end of the deal.
From those early rep days, your partner, actor and singer Steve Bent.
Oh, well.
Now, Steve, you're flying back to Harrogate tonight to be in time to appear in the theatre
about
there.
4 seconds, yeah.
But it was a much humbler form of transport you two shared in those days.
Yes, we had a tandem. We used to go about Crewe in a tandem. And it had a few problems, you see, because if we went to a party and Richard had a few beers, he usually found someone with a better shape than me to sit on the back seat on the way home.
Yeah.
Not often, not often. Not often, not a lot, no.
But you got your own back, didn't you?
Well, I got my own back, you see. We had this house for 52 and 6 a week, if you can believe that. And it had no bath. And we used to go every Saturday to the wash baths.
Yes.
We agreed that the one who had the cleanest water paid for the money. Because he shouldn't have been there anyway. Right. And I always won. I never paid for anything. I never paid my $50. And I'm going to tell you now why, and you don't know this. But before we went to the wash baths, I used to take all my clothes off, crawl into the dirtiest part of the theatre and roll around for half an hour.
I believe you. Thank you, Stephen Bent. A good trip.
All right, yeah.
Well, eating is another problem for a penniless youngster, which is why a certain family at Crewe get used to midnight calls at their home from the star of the local rep.
Richard was always turning up on his bike asking for a boiled egg.
From your home from home at Crewe, your good friend Monica Stubbs, and with her husband Frank.
Oh.
Well, Monica, Richard had a pretty healthy appetite after a long day at the theatre.
He was always hungry, Eamon. Always. And we do miss him coming round now.
I'll be back.
Although he was pretty broke, there was one day, Frank, when you thought Richard must have struck it rich at last.
Oh, we really did, yes. Here I'm a coal merchant. He arrived one day at my coal yard with a car for ancient Ford Popular. A couple of days later, he arrives with another one, you see. Total cost, he said, £30. The idea was, of course, to put the two together. And, of course, he was due to go to a job at Hull. I think it was from Crewe. And, of course, he had to get this car, just got to be mobile to take him there, you see. So it did fair. And he finished up a towing job, and he was towed from Crewe to Hull. But, of course, the straw of the tow ropes never last that long, do they? And it got shorter and shorter, yes. And the journey was finally rounded off with the car being towed by a pair of nylon tights.
Thank you, Frank and Monica Stubbs. Well, it was in your days at Crewe, though, Richard, that you first meet Judy. And Judy, in one of the first plays you did together there, you're in the production of All in Good Time. You two played a couple very much in love, as we've just seen. And, in fact, on stage, though, you didn't always see eye to eye.
No, Richard's short-sightedness again. In fact, I first realised how bad it was in the first production we did together, which was Tom Jones. And he had to deliver romantic lines. And he'd direct this ardent passion at my left ear or the back of my neck.
Well, must have been very convincing, because that and other romantic roles aren't wasted, because when television finally takes notice of the young provincial actor, you're picked to play the lead in a new comedy series after only a handful of television appearances.
Hello, Geoffrey. Geoffrey Sexy Bubbles Bonbon.
Hello, Beryl.
Love you billions and trillions.
Thank you, Beryl. Beryl, do you remember earlier when I mentioned knowing about 20 girls sort of very, very particularly well?
Some men have got it, Geoffrey, and some weren't even in the queue when they were dishing it out.
Well, I think I might have tended to give the impression of having more than I've actually got.
Well, The Lovers, of course, an overnight hit for you and your co-star Paula Wilcox, who can't be with you tonight, but she talks to you now from the set of her new television series.
Hello, Richard. Well, I've been asked to try and think of a funny story about when we were filming The Lovers, but I can only think of awful stories, like our very first day's rehearsal, when all these photographers turned up to take our pictures. And apparently, Granada had told them that after we'd filmed The Lovers, we were going to become the most famous teenagers in the business. Well, I was horrified to learn that photographers were there because I didn't have a comb. So I asked you if I could borrow yours, and you didn't have one either. I often wonder what people thought as they read the article and looked at the photograph and thought, gosh, these are the people who were lucky and got the parts. I wonder what they thought of, you know, what the rest of the actors were like. Because we were there with you with your hair standing on end and me with little sort of straggly bits hanging all down my face because I hadn't combed my hair properly. Anyway, I'm sure you're looking very glamorous tonight. And I want to say lots of luck with tonight. I'm delighted to hear about it. And especially lots of luck in the future. Love to Judy. See you both soon. Bye.
Thank you, Paula Wilcox. Well, the lad from Nottingham's a star now. There are West End roles in comedies. 2 and 2 Make Sex, Funny Peculiar, and in 1973, a role in a famous BBC series.
You know, I've always been attracted to older women. When I was a lad, I wanted to be seduced by my Auntie Pauline. Very sophisticated she was. Worked in a dress shop in Smethwick and wore Evening in Paris behind her ears.
Oh, yeah. Behind her ears, yeah, that's your sign, that is, yeah.
I nearly was once.
What?
Seduced.
Oh, yeah.
I went round there one afternoon and the radio was playing and she said to me, she said, Lenny, don't you think it's about time you learned how to foxtrot? Well, I mean, even at the naive age of 14, I thought, foxtrot, middle of the afternoon, yum yum, I thought.
Yeah, I bet you did. Here, do you think you ought to go on in front of Mr. Mackay there? I mean, he's a strict Glasgow Presbyterian, you know. Sex is only allowed up there when Rangers beat Celtic, you know.
Well, college, of course. And it's from Slade Prison that we've another message for you now.
Godbar, what's this you're playing at, eh?
Unmistakably, that famous warder from Slade's our good pal, Fulton Mackay. Well, now, you have to give God for quite a bit of stick in the series, Fulton, but how do you find working with Richard in real life?
Well, I think he's that strange phenomenon of our business. I think he's a star. And I think that apart from his own great natural gifts as an actor, he is one that is exceptional in this day and age. I think he's got the great art of concealing art. I never met anybody more relaxed. He goes about half asleep all the time, at least looking as if he's half asleep. And it's only when you hear Richard in front of an audience and the laughs are coming and the feed lines are going in and he's banging character, you know just how talented he is. But there's one area that he's got no talent at all. I took him to play squash one day and beat the hind out. And the only revenge that he could think of was next morning in rehearsal he walked in and boldly said, "The old man beat me." It was the first time in my life that I'd been called an old man. And I'm only here tonight because I'm hoping that when I'm really an old man, he'll see that I get some small parts and those great successes that I know lie ahead of him.
Well done. Obviously, I must ask you, as prison officer Mackay, that famous inmate of Porridge, Fletcher, couldn't come along.
No, sorry, they wouldn't let me come. But I'm sending along the fat one with the grey hair, all right?
Yes, Richard, he's here too. Comedy acting star Ronnie Barker, alias your cellmate, Fletch. I'm glad you made it, sir.
How are you, sir? I couldn't, Fletcher couldn't come, but he sent a little letter that he'd like me to read out. There we are, on real notepaper, look at that. Dear Godber, it says. Dear Godber, just a line to say that everyone is pleased you're doing so well. We all envy you being on This Is Your Life. All of us, that is, except Basher Perkins. And that, of course, is understandable because he's doing life himself at the moment. We have been following your progress in the papers and also through the letters from my daughter Ingrid, who apparently accompanied you to Southend-on-Sea on one of them cheap British Rail Have It Away Day tickets. She tells me you proposed to her, and not only proposed, but proposed marriage. Which means that one day I may be calling you son, which I think is the only thing I haven't called you in the last few years. Now, I am personally very chuffed to know that you have left behind the grey grim walls of Slade Prison and are now busily engaged, pouncing about the stage, singing and dancing. It must make a great change for you from your old job of driving a heavy lorry, although Mr. Mackay, who's seen the show, says it's very similar the way you do it. I will close now with best wishes from us all, and good luck in all you do, whoever they are.
Thank you, Ronnie Barker. Thank you, Fulton Mackay. Well, it's the first time I heard it too. Millions more fans for you from that hit series, but let's go back to where it all began, to that first school in Nottingham, Richard. You were the ringleader of 4 inseparable pals. Now, Alan, 2 are missing.
Yes, they joined the Navy when we left school. We've never been together since.
Well, we looked around the world for those missing pals. One we found in Gibraltar, the other a further 7,000 miles away in Hong Kong. And so those 4 pals could be together again after 15 years. We've flown them to London tonight. From Gibraltar, Petty Officer Brian West.
Oh!
And from Hong Kong, Petty Officer John Osmond. Now, Brian, you actually appeared with Richard in that first school production, and John, you shifted scenery. Did you ever think then that you'd see young Richard's name in lights one day?
No, I did not.
No, go on.
Although when I realised he was becoming a star, I always got the English papers wherever I was, and I followed your progress, and I'm proud to say that I know Richard Beckinsale.
Good. And just one more surprise, Richard. That favourite playmate of yours, of course, your daughter, Kate. Richard Beckinsale, this is your life.
Splendid, thank you.
Well done, Kate.